Hello, let's make a video here. It's time for Gukesh against Predke, and we're still at the Chennai Grandmasters 2023 in India. Gukesh is white and he plays e4, so Gukesh can play both e4 and d4, so he probably have one of the best memories in chess because he seems to be getting good position from the opening, so he's probably preparing very hard like before the games. This time he's doing the Rosoli move variation bishop e5 here that Carlsen also played against Carlsen in the World Championship match. In that those games Magnus played g6 and bishop g7, but Predke does e5. And this is the same tactic as in the Spanish. If he takes, then of course black wins back the e4 pawn and has no problems. So Gukesh castles, and then bishop e7, rook e1, knight e4, take, and c3. It's important for white to break in the center, because if you would just play passively, probably black would have a fine position playing knight f6, castle d5, and he would have a good position. So it's time for white to break in the center here, and it also actually forces black to get doubled pawns, because if black would take here, white has the strong gambit here, d4, and if it takes it, then g7 is under attack, and if knight f6, black is already losing a piece here because of e5. So black has to I'm sure they know about this in like its theory and all that, but still interesting tactic. So black has to take the double d pawns here, but it's not such a big deal because there is good chances for black that he can maybe try to trade with d5, or at least he gets a lot of control in the center, because remember doubled pawns in the center gives good control. For example, now black tries to trade the pawn, and white obviously does not want to do that, so he plays e5. But now these pawns, they control these squares, and it's also extremely important that white has a pawn in front of the doubled pawn. And the reason for that is that, and now it's not easy for white to attack these pawns. Like he cannot just put the rook on d1 and attack them like that. So they're relatively safe. But yeah, so let's see what happens. Here it looks like white has two options here, knight b3 and knight f3. But I think the advantage with knight b3 is that you can play f4, which is a move that would be quite interesting for white to play. But the problem is that this bishop here is in big trouble then, and it will, for example, knight b3, a6, and he would already have to trade it away even if he wins d4. But the bishop on b5 would probably have to trade then. So I guess that's the main reason why he does knight f3. And now white has the option to save the bishop here. Apparently it was also possible for black here to play knight e6 and play with the bishop on d7 instead, because what will happen now is that white plays a3 here, and it's clearly right for black to go back with the bishop to h5, even if he loses a pawn here, because he will get play when what will happen is that white will play g4 and win d4, but black will get some play against the weakened white king. But because if he takes on f3 here, then white just has the bishop pair, and black doesn't have very much compensation for it. So it's definitely correct to do bishop h5 here, and g4, bishop g6, and it takes on d4. That's the point of why white played h4 and h3 and g4. He wants to win that pawn. And here it's correct for black to play knight e6 first. Black has potential here. Now white has to choose like what to do with a knight. Like if he wants to go to f5 or f3, he does not want to take, because if he takes on e6 takes, then there is like there will be a lot of play against the f2 pawn, which is a bit weak, especially if he takes on e6. Gukesh decided to do knight f3, which is safer. He's up a pawn, so it makes a lot of sense that he wants to play the safe way. Makes a lot of sense, because already up a pawn, so like if you can just defend, endgames is good for him. But the computer likes knight f5. Knight f5 looks like it looks great to put the knight here. Very aggressive place for the knight. But what will happen here is that now knight bishop c5, and white has this one is under attack, and it's a little bit not so easy for white what he can do here. He can do d4, but then black will just take back the pawn, and it's quite unequal position. So he should defend like this, and there are some tactics here, but it's quite logical to take here. And here bishop d2 is not so good. It looks good first because like rook b1 he takes on e5, but of course white should play d4 first and defend the center, and then he could play something like this later, and white has a good control here over the center. So better is for black to immediately try to open the center with f6. And black has opportunities to get player anyway. Excuse me 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. And so there is, for example, if I looked at the line here, if the play goes like this, d4 looks logical, and this queen c7 it takes here, it threatens to give drawing checks or mating checks here, so he has to go here, and now he cannot take here because but this might still be okay for white, but just to show why he can't take here, it's because then black can sacrifice his rook and get a winning mating attack here. So this is just show a little bit what can happen if white is not careful here. So this is one way how it could go. Another way for black to play if he does knight f5 is to take here and then play here. That's also an interesting line for black. He can go here later, and right now this bishop, because white cannot do d4 anymore, this bishop on c2 has a bad, it's just in a bad place here. It probably has to go here, but black can attack it maybe with the rook and stuff, and the white king is still a little bit weak, so the computer thinks this also is an even position. So let's see what happened. Gukesh played a safer move, knight f3, and here black did black did rook c8, which the computer thinks it's fine, but it's also interesting to play either with something with the f pawn. For example, computer seems to like this f5, forcing white to take, and black has good active pieces. Some squares are quite weak for white, so actually computer, despite being down a pawn, he thinks black has enough compensation here because of his active pieces. So that was one alternative, and it was also possible to play like this. And again, white can try to give back a pawn, but because if he plays like this, like we analyzed before, then again, something with f5 is what the computer wants to do. Yeah, now it's a big difference, because before this bishop was blocked, but now white can also, or black can also take here, because this is not longer possible, because yeah, bishop, the knight is on f3 and not on f5 now. So also this looks is better for black. Computer thinks this is also better for black. So Gukesh was a bit lucky that black did not find any one of the best moves here. Instead he played this one, also fine move, but it's not the best. And it's quite logical now to because yeah, this bishop doesn't do so much, and he can never play d4 because yeah, sorry, I can't show today because this bishop is under attack, so it's logical to move that bishop. Black tried to attack this one, but white can just do d4 then, so it doesn't look like the right move. Computer prefers something like that. I think maybe again this one. I like that one the most. Also preventing d4. Because now it looked like it was to white advantage to put the pawns like this, because black doesn't have the potential play against the f2 pawn anymore. Instead, black decides to attack the rook here, which doesn't give so much, and the computer wants to go back, but obviously the reason why black played here, it's because this rook could only go to e3, and the reason is like, well, it could go to e2 also, but for example, if it would have gone to f1, black could have threatened it again. So here it's when black played bishop here, he probably thought, okay, so then white play rook e3, and I can do this and get some threats here. But the computer doesn't like that move, because I guess it doesn't give so much. He only has to go back. So here Gukesh doesn't seem to see the correct way here. Correct for white was to actually to trade this bishop. This also defends. Black was attacking h2, and now it's defended. And he could also like go here. So it's yeah, computer already, I don't really see why, but computer already think white is winning, and I guess it's because apparently this, let's just do the main line here. Maybe we could take it. If it takes like this, it's open, but he gets the passer. And now white can take here, and he has sometimes maybe he doesn't want to take, maybe he wants to go here instead, actually, probably. Just see what can happen here. white is pawn up, and he has good pieces here. So computer already think white is winning here. Okay, so that's interesting. Gukesh decided to go back with the knight because he thought that was safer, but computer liked knight f5 a bit more, and now the computer wants to almost immediately wants to play that maneuver again. So that's a little bit interesting. Okay, but yeah, maybe it's because black didn't do the best move here, and also that explains why computer wants to go back here, because he doesn't want to allow that maneuver. Okay, but white didn't see that, so he played rook d2. Now this pawn is getting lost, so makes more sense if you don't see this one that you play king h2 and just defend the pawn, but white sacrifice that pawn. Black takes, of course. Checks again. Because of these checks, whites decide to go up with the king, so black cannot draw with the checks here. But the king is more vulnerable here also than here, so but yeah, of course black has traded the central pawn on E line for an H pawn. Of course, central pawn is much more valuable. So in the middle game. So that's why the computer likes white here anyway. So let's see what happens. He played A4 to kick the queen. Then he took. I see. So white. Knight e6 actually loses a pawn. I see. Knight e6 loses this pawn. So the computer prefers to go here first. And then go here. Because, yeah. Because now this pawn is defended. But what happened in the game was that black lost that pawn. Because white can just take on b4 and then take that pawn. Of course, it's a little bit dangerous for white to take that pawn because black gets gets an active rook. D4 is weak, so there's good chances for black to win back the pawn. But yeah, okay, and actually he could win a pawn on b2 at once here. But it's again a side pawn for a central pawn, and this pawn has potential to be extremely strong if the bishop moves, and it can start going forward. The computer analyzes like queen b2, but I think that's the old stockfish. I think that's stockfish 17. Stockfish 16. I think stockfish 17 likes this move, which looks like the most logical, to just put the rook here. Then let's say white take. And white, yeah. White's position here is quite good, but black has, it has like good. Black has every chance to get a draw here. Like these pawns are a bit weak, hard for white, so it's quite good drawing chances for black here, I think. Also, instead of h6, why can't he take here? Okay, because it's this is too dangerous. Okay, so this e7 play is very dangerous. So black cannot take that. Why can't he do that? Why can't he do it now? Okay, because the rook gets counter-attack here. I see. That's why black should keep the queen on the 4th rank. Okay. So let's see what happened. He played rook c2. Yeah, threatens b2, but it's easy to play b3, so then he does that move. And that was also a possibility, like maybe here, like it was okay, so this one didn't work. Yeah, this one doesn't work because this one is being, yeah, he can just take here. But now when he does like this, a knight doesn't work anyway. I read wrong here. I read knight bishop e4, but it still doesn't work, of course. But instead, yeah, now when he has done b3, he can put the bishop here, so he doesn't have to take the knight. So that's of course an advantage for white if he doesn't have to take it, and it's good because it covered the 4th rank, which was, there were problems there in that line we analyzed. But also this is of course a better line for white than the other line. But he played here. Now black finds a way to win back a pawn here, but the computer doesn't. Yeah, the computer likes it, but it's still winning for white here. So let's see that tactic here. He saw that he could take here and then go here and win back the knight. But the computer doesn't like it because of this pin for some reason. And you can't take with this rook, so you have to take like that. Interesting, this rook is quite bad, so the computer just wants to trade this one. That's interesting. Okay, so let's see if he plays like that. And you don't want to be in this eternal pin, so he takes here, take, and e6. Okay, white wins pawn on the queen side in this quite forced variation, and has winning position. Of course, only chance for black to draw is if he can go to a rook endgame, but he can't because of this. And this is probably a winning position for white. Okay, so it was smarter for white to trade pieces and go to the endgame with this e6, but he did e6 at once. Okay, so the computer doesn't like it because black can get counterplay here with rook c4, but black played something else. Let's look at that. It threatens here, so you can't do e7. You want e7 and take a queen, but rook g4 is too dangerous, so has to take here. Then best move is to check. Okay, and we get a position like this where white is an exchange up, but black has some activity and has some drawing chances, definitely, at least in practical play. But instead, black started with the check instead of sacrificing the exchange. And only move is to go here. So that's what I said about the white king being quite often quite weak on g3, maybe on, but it was also quite weak on g1. So okay, so here black makes a blunder that loses the game immediately. Let's look at the best move here first. This looks dangerous here. Like if black would have sacked on c4 before, he didn't have to have this have to bother with this pin, but it's still there is still a way for him that he could do like this. Apparently check here. Like if he goes down with the rook, he can take here, and so that's why he probably should take. And we got a position that looks a little bit like the other one, but this looks a little bit better for white. In the other one, this pawn was here on c4, so both queenside pawn were weak, and I think white is a little bit more active also now. Okay, but instead black blundered with this. It must have been some kind of a wrong calculation or maybe a gamble here, because e7 is possible now, of course. And white wins. White gets a new queen basically, because he can't even do f6 because of the pin. So he gets at least a new queen here. So the question is, does black have some attack or some drawing checks or something now? And it looks like he doesn't. He did rook g4, which didn't work. But this doesn't work either, because of here. For example, check. Here. Yeah, and white will get a new. White threatened to get a new queen. Only way is to block here, but he can still get a new queen like this. Yeah. And white will be a queen up. Okay, but this doesn't work either, because white can take a queen, of course. And it looks maybe like white has something here. For example, it looks like black can maybe do rook h4 here, and then something like this, take and maybe take, and maybe if rook here, maybe you could go here with checkmate. But because white can take on f7, so it can't work for some reason. So let's see what happens here. So if he does that one here, then he can go here, and it's apparently quite safe here. Yeah, there's only check is here. Something like this, and black will run out of checks and has like queen and two rooks down. So instead the game ended by black playing here. Obviously threatening queen h4, but white's move. Just decided to take here. Yeah. Even if he takes with the rook, just queen d2, and white is queen and rook up. So let's see what happens. Yeah, now black loses his queen here. Black tries to get drawing checks here, but yeah, white can just hide here on f1. So he found a way to not lose the queen, but he's still one queen down. So okay, white wins. Nice, very nice, interesting game actually. I think very interesting game. So next time we're going to look at the game against Firusha, and now it's the Vacancy tournament that we watched many times in my Magnus series. So let's look at that next time.